Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of Intelsat Galaxy 33 and Galaxy 34 from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. It's great to have you all joining us here tonight. Take a moment, let us know in the chat where you're watching from, and if you're watching the replay, comment down below replay. We'd still love to see who's here, and we answer your questions in the comments still, even during replays. But if it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the launch pad, and here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you here. We've got Mission Control Net patched in, so we are listening into how fueling operations are proceeding, and the fuel load has begun. We are go for today's flight. As always, it's on our launch coverage. We're going to run through everything we know about today's mission, and then we're going to be answering your guys' live comments and questions. Now, we will be having live pad views in a little bit. SpaceX not expected to go live for another about 10 minutes or so. No media availability for today's launch, so we're reliant only on their cameras for today. But we are going to be answering those questions, and we didn't want to miss out on this final bit of the countdown. As you can see, we are also counting down now on our screen to payload deployment. So this gives you an idea of how long roughly until we expect to see today's two satellites deployed. That countdown to the first of the two deployments, and they are back to back, and that's all thanks to your guys' recommendations. If you guys have questions, as always, send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, but let's run through everything we know about today's mission. You're joining us for our live coverage of the launch of Intelsat Galaxy 33 and Galaxy 34, two communication satellites that are replacement for Intelsat's aging satellites in the 133 degree and 129 degree geo slots, respectively. Each of these C-band only communication satellites will allow service for North America television broadcasting. So that's what we'll be expecting to launch here today. We're launching from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station up into a geostationary orbit. And as always, we're launching on a SpaceX Falcon 9. Today's Falcon 9 is booster 1060-14, one of the flight leading Falcon 9s going for its 14th flight. It's on a 113-day turnaround time. It'll be attempting to land on a short follow gravitas, which is stationed 663 kilometers downrange from Cape Canaveral, launching pretty much straight to the east. So if you are on the Space Coast and have a clear sky, definitely take a moment and take a look outside this evening in about 16 minutes or so, and you may be able to see it flying through the sky. Tonight's launch will be the 180th Falcon 9 launch in history, and SpaceX continuing to push for some of those new records for their 72nd consecutive landing, successful consecutive landing, and their 46th launch for 2022, continuing to push towards that goal of 60. Now, if you're a fan of the Falcon 9, you know there's the Falcon Heavy. We all love a Falcon Heavy, and we've all been waiting. It's been 3 years. Well, Falcon Heavy... There we can hear propellant loading continuing. Falcon Heavy is officially back on the launch schedule. SpaceX now working on doing some changeover at Pad 39A to prepare for it. Falcon Heavy is being prepared inside the garage, and we have a target launch date of October 28th to break the over 3-year streak of no Falcon Heavy missions. So we're very excited for that. We'll, of course, be bringing you full live launch coverage of the return of Falcon Heavy. And this should be the first of over 20 Falcon Heavy missions scheduled over the next about 6 years. So we're going to see lots more of them, and we're super excited for that. Tonight's launch is in the 130 to 140 launches so far this year. We're working on finalizing our numbers for that, but we're very quickly getting into those mid-hundreds. Maybe we'll see 200 this year. It's going to be tight, but we'll see if we can break that number. If you're just joining us, though, take a moment, engage that like button. It really does help us out, and share out the stream as we count down now 15 minutes, 15 seconds, and counting until liftoff. I know we got people from all over the world tuning in. It's great to have you here. We got Roger in New Mexico. We got Joe in Hong Kong. Great to see you again. We got Strato in Pennsylvania. We got Dee's in Australia. Brian's in Texas. Gabriel's in Tampa. Great to see you all here today. We got Marcus in Sweden, James in Ireland, Edmund is in California, Brad's in New York City, and I'm up in Canada at the head TLP HQ studio, and we're glad to have you all here with us tonight. If you guys have questions, you can send those to us in the chat. We'll work on answering those live while we wait for SpaceX to officially begin their live feed. And if you haven't yet, though, take a moment, engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, space briefing, space news update, or exclusive one-on-one interview. I figure I'll get the first question that I'm sure is going to be coming in the chat out of the way. Any update on Artemis 1? We sort of have one. Teams are continuing to work on SLS in the vehicle assembly building. They have put all the levels back into place in the VAB so they can access all the parts of the rocket. They are going to be resetting and retesting the flight termination system, and that will reactivate that countdown of how long they can launch till, which even though they had that, they wrote a waiver anyway, so they're resetting it so they have some good time with SLS out at the pad without that being a restriction. And they're working on a few other things to prepare for another launch attempt. We do know they are now targeting officially November 14th to November 27th launch window in Space Coast. So that is what we are working for. And of course, our team will be down on site, live on location for that launch. Excited to be back at NASA Kennedy Space Center's press site, the Saturn V facility, as well as in the local area. Now, SpaceX is getting spooled up here, so of course we will patch them in once we do have actually that clear live feed and we're able to look at that live pad shot and get an update on how today's countdown is going. Because today is a customer mission, they are going live a little bit earlier, which is nice, so we get to see the Falcon 9 through that final about 10 minutes or so of the countdown sequence. And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad as we count down 11 minutes and counting until liftoff and the opening of today's window. We do have a 70-minute long window today, so if for any reason we do need to hold, they do have some time to recycle for the Falcon 9 rocket. If you were watching us a couple days ago when you joined us for our live coverage of the launch of Galaxy 33 and 34, we got all the way down last few seconds and the Falcon 9 aborted the launch sequence itself at about 29 seconds. That was due to a sensor detecting a helium decay being higher than they would have liked. Elon confirming that just minutes later on Twitter and confirming that it was such a small detection that it almost didn't even trigger the alarm that triggered the system to do that auto launch abort. But because it's a customer payload, they of course take safety as their number one priority. So they scrubbed the launch and wanted to review the vehicle, and that's where we see them going today, having another launch attempt. As you can see, SpaceX getting well underway here, so we're going to of course patch in and listen into their mission control. Throughout today's stream, if you have questions, keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we'll work on answering those. And if you haven't yet taken a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream. It really does help us out to let YouTube know that you enjoy watching rocket launches and you enjoy watching them right here on the Launchpad, which really helps us continue to be able to do what we love to do thanks to your guys' generous support. SpaceX is getting spooled up here, so let's listen in to SpaceX Mission Control as we count down to launch of Intelsat Galaxy 33 and 34.
You have a live view of Falcon 9 awaiting its 7:05 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Good evening and welcome to our launch coverage of the Galaxy 33, Galaxy 34 mission for our customer Intelsat. My name is Shiva and I'm a space operations engineer here at SpaceX, and I'm joining you today from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Now, if you've been following this launch, you know that we stood down from our initial attempt on Thursday due to an abort at T-minus 30 seconds for a small helium leak. Since then, our teams have worked the issue and we are once again go for launch. Galaxy 33 and Galaxy 34 are the first two of 7 satellites that will replace and refresh a large part of Intelsat's North America Galaxy fleet. The Galaxy 33 satellite will offer continuity for North America cable distribution customers, including HBO, Fox Networks, Starz, and Bally Sports. And the Galaxy 34 satellite will become Intelsat's newest protection satellite, which means it's a backup satellite for the constellation. Here's a bit more about the payloads we're flying on today's mission.
Intelsat operates the largest integrated space and ground network in the world, bringing reliable, resilient connectivity to billions globally. But as the foundational architects of communications technology, we're never done finding new ways to bring value to our customers.
Each launch is a critical step to ensure long-term continuity for the services that we deliver. For some customers, it's about reliability of their mission-critical service. For others, it's about getting the runway to grow their business.
And as our customers' needs grow, our network is evolving with them. At the same time that we're developing the first 5G software-defined ecosystem, we're continuing to strengthen our existing fleet.
Galaxy 33 will be used as a primary cable distribution asset, reaching 99.999% of all US cable subscribers. Galaxy 34, on the other hand, will be a protection satellite, which will ensure very high reliability for our cable distribution services. It will also be used to contribute news and sports content on an occasional basis.
These new satellites will be substantially more powerful, continuing to provide the same broad, consistent coverage as the ones they're replacing, while also helping to broaden future capabilities for the organizations we serve.
Those satellites are extremely important because they're going to help vacate the lower end of the C-band spectrum, which will be used by the mobile network operators to expand their 5G networks. Like the saying is, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a lot of people to build a satellite.
The entire Northrop Grumman team is just very proud to manufacture and deliver Galaxy 33 and 34 to Intelsat and support their commitment to their end customers around the globe.
We're very fortunate. We have some of the best people in the industry, and everybody contributed to this big success.
We're about 6 minutes away from liftoff, so let's get to know a little bit more about the rocket on your screen. This is our 2-stage Falcon 9 vehicle. It's about 229 feet tall. That's slightly taller than a 21-story building. Now, the bottom 2/3 of the vehicle is called the first stage, or the booster. Its objective is to accelerate the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere to space, and then it will separate from the rest of the rocket. Today's booster is flying for its 14th time, having previously supported the GPS-3 Space Vehicle 3 mission, Turksat 5A, Transporter 2, and 10 Starlink missions. Now, above the first stage, we've got the second stage. It has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine, and that will ignite just after the first stage separates about 2.5 minutes into the flight. The second stage is what will carry the Intelsat Galaxy 33 and 34 satellites to orbit. Now, the satellites are safely enclosed inside the 17-foot diameter payload fairing, which is this large nose cone structure at the top of the second stage. It's made of carbon composites, and the fairing, its job is to protect the satellites as we make our way to orbit. The fairing is jettisoned once we get through the thicker parts of the Earth's atmosphere. That'll happen about 3 minutes into flight. Now finally, we've got this large truss structure to the left of the vehicle. That's called the Transporter Erector, or the TE. We use it to roll out the rocket to the launch pad and raise it into this vertical launch position. The TE also routes the vehicle's fluids, power, and telemetry from ground systems to the rocket and the satellites until Falcon 9 switches over to internal power and then ultimately clears the pad at T-0. At that point, at liftoff, the Transporter Erector will retract even further to clear the way for Falcon 9's ascent. So you heard a call out there on the neck. So we also refer to the Transporter Erector as the strongback. You can see that the clamp arms have opened around the second stage, and we're beginning to slightly pull it away from the rocket as we prepare for liftoff. As we get to T-0, the TE will pull away even further using ground hydraulic systems at the rocket's base. And you can actually see a little bit there at the bottom. There's the launch mount that the TE is connected to. It's a hinge structure, and the ground hydraulic system helps pull that away, clearing the way for Falcon 9's ascent at T-0 just under 3.5 minutes from now. Coming up, we'll get two call-outs about a minute apart. First of those will be at about T-3 minutes. That'll be for LOX load, liquid oxygen loading complete on the first stage. And then shortly after, at about T-2 minutes, we'll get a similar call-out on the second stage for liquid oxygen loading
load
complete. You just heard the call-out there for the first stage. So with that, propellants are fully loaded on Falcon 9's first stage. Between the two stages, there's about 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. And you can kind of see the white clouds forming around the vehicle. That's totally normal. We super chill that liquid oxygen, and as we're filling up the tanks, we're venting off a little bit overboard to give us more room to fill in more of the liquid oxygen. As that gas comes into contact with the moist Florida air, it actually causes water vapor to condense and form literal clouds around the vehicle. Looking like a beautiful day at Florida for today's launch attempt. If you're just joining us, that's coming up in about 2 minutes. Next major milestone here will be liquid oxygen loading complete on the second stage, and then followed at T-1 minute. Falcon 9 will transition into startup. Now what that means is that its internal flight computers call out there for liquid oxygen loading complete on the second stage. So that means that we are fully loaded with propellants. As I was just saying, at T-60, Falcon 9 will switch to startup, which means its flight computers will take over the rest of the launch countdown. And then at about T-2 seconds, we'll ignite those Merlin 1D engines for liftoff. The payloads continue to look healthy. Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is 90% go. The range is green. Call out there on the net for gas closeouts with that, and you can see some venting coming from the Transporter Erector. We just clear out the lines ahead of the liftoff. So again, totally normal part of the countdown.
Falcon is in startup.
So with that, the stages have begun pressurizing for flight. Falcon 9's computer is in control of the vehicle.
LD, go for launch.
Launch director polling, they are go for launch. So at about T-40 seconds to go, all systems go, weather looking great, payloads looking healthy. Let's watch.
T-30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9. Go Falcon, go Intelsat Galaxy 33 and 34. Falcon 9 is pitching down range.
T plus 40 seconds into flight, Falcon 9 successfully lifting off from Pad 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying Intelsat's Galaxy 33 and 34 satellites to orbit. Now, during ascent, we have begun tilting the engine, that's technically called gimbaling, and we've begun what's called a gravity turn. So we're beginning to move the rocket horizontally. We're still going up, but we're also going horizontally out
Falcon
over
9
the
is
Atlantic.
supersonic.
At this point, we're just a few seconds away for maximum dynamic pressure, max Q, right after we get supersonic.
Max Q.
With that, we are through the highest point of stresses as we're going up through the Earth's atmosphere. Now, going back to what I was saying about going horizontally, a rocket needs to go about 17,500 miles per hour to get into orbit. So our velocity is going to keep ticking up. You can see that on the left-hand side of your screen to take these satellites to their ultimate orbital destination. Coming up, we've got 3 events in quick succession. First of those will be MECO, that's main engine cutoff. This is where we shut down all 9 of the Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. Following that, we'll have stage separation. The first and second stages will separate. And then we'll have second engine start number 1, SES-1. That's where we'll ignite the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. So again, 3 events happening back-to-back. MECO, stage separation, SES-1. Those will happen about 20 seconds from now. Great shots from the ground. You can see as the atmosphere is getting less dense, the plume expanding behind the rocket.
MECO. Stage separation confirmed. And back ignition.
There we go, those 3 events back to back. So with that, the first stage will start making its way back to planet Earth for recovery. Our second stage has a pretty long burn to go. Next major milestone here will be coming up at about T plus 3.5 minutes. That'll be fairing deployment. Now both of these fairings, oh, that's a great shot. You can see the first stage, I believe, on the right and the second stage on the left. And those periodic bursts you're seeing there from the first stage attitude control system, helping reorient it, get the heat shields down. Let's see if we'll also get to see fairings. Yep,
Fairing
you can see them.
Confirmed.
Left-hand side of your screen, those 2 white blobs coming off of the second stage are fairings. These fairings have flown 5 times each. We will be attempting to retrieve them today and use them on a future mission.
Both stages continue on nominal trajectories.
We're about T plus
Acquisition
4
signal
minutes
Bermuda.
into today's mission. Had a successful liftoff just 4 minutes ago. We're in the first of 2 planned Merlin vacuum burns for satellite deployment. Left-hand side of your screen is Falcon 9's first stage. We've got a view looking down towards the engines. You can see that the grid fins have deployed in preparation for atmospheric reentry. On the right-hand side of your screen, a great shot of the Merlin vacuum engine glowing brightly with planet Earth in the background and some sunlight behind. The second stage on the right-hand side of your screen is carrying the Intelsat Galaxy 33 and 34 satellites to orbit. Next major milestone is just under 2 minutes from now. That'll be the first stage's entry burn. For that, we'll ignite 3 of the Merlin 1D engines, starting with the center engine, and then 2 of the radial engines. And that's amazing. That's a great view. You can see we just launched at the perfect time here, so we're catching sunlight off of the top of the Earth's atmosphere. It's reflecting off of the plume of the rocket. I love to call this the space jellyfish or the space octopus. But at the altitude that the rocket is at, the sun hasn't quite set yet, so we're just seeing the plume of the sunlight reflecting. Fantastic. Now, as I was saying, entry burn coming up for the first stage, left-hand side of your screen. That burn helps slow down the first stage for recovery as we start hitting the thicker parts of the Earth's atmosphere. And during that entry burn, we're decelerating, firing the Merlin engines, but the plume of the rocket is coming back on the vehicle, and so that ends up leaving that nice soot deposit that we see on the surface of Falcon 9s when we get them back on recovery. You're seeing some white gas bursts on the left-hand side of your screen. That's from the attitude control system. We carry nitrogen gas on the first stage. Since you don't have an atmosphere to push off of in space, we have to produce some thrust to reorient the vehicle, and that comes from those nitrogen gas thrusters. Second stage burn continuing to look nominal.
Stage 1 FTS has saved.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
So again, 3 Merlin 1D engines igniting here, plume coming back on the vehicle, slowing us down. This burn just about 20 seconds long.
Entry burn shutdown.
And successful shutdown of the entry burn. So with that, the first stage is going to do a little bit of reorienting, make sure its heat shield is pointed down, and as we start getting into the thicker parts of the Earth's atmosphere, those grid fins start to become much more effective. And the whole reason for doing this is because we want to reuse this booster. Reusability is the key to lowering the cost of spaceflight. That enables us to make more investments in critical scientific research. And as I mentioned earlier, the first stage that's supporting today's mission is making this burn for the 14th time, having done it for GPS-3 Space Vehicle 3, TurkSat 5A, Transporter 2, and 10 Starlink missions.
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
So with that call out for Stage 2 terminal guidance, we're coming up on second engine cutoff, or SECO, number
Stage
1.
Stage 1 is transonic.
That call out there indicating that we are passing through the speed of sound as we're getting through the thicker parts of the Earth's atmosphere. Next major milestone for the first stage will be its landing burn. Just a single Merlin engine will ignite, followed by landing leg deploy.
Stage 2 FTS has saved.
And hopefully a soft touchdown.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Landing burn startup.
Engine cutoff.
You just heard the call out there for second engine cutoff on the second stage.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing is confirmed.
Awesome. Successful
Stage 2
landing
nominal orbit insertion.
on our drone ship about
Expected loss of signal, Cape.
600 kilometers off the coast of Florida. You also heard in there was second engine cutoff on our second stage. So just handling them in order here. 146th recovery for an orbital class rocket, including first stage landings for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. Second stage completed its burn. It's in the nominal orbit, but the mission isn't over just yet. The second stage is going to embark on its first coast phase. Following that coast phase, we are going to light the Merlin vacuum engine for a second time. That'll happen about 26 minutes into the mission. So we're going to see you back here in about 17 minutes. In the meantime, enjoy the space tunes, enjoy this awesome view of Falcon 9 and the space jellyfish.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We're going to today, oh, they took it away. Bring us back that other shot. That shot, absolutely an incredible view showing the launch jellyfish with the landed booster. Always amazing. Less than 10 minutes we have launch. And even looking here, you can see that jellyfish behind the second stage. We're seeing some incredible views launch just at the exact right moment tonight to see these launch jellyfishes from some angles that we've never really seen before. But if you're just joining us, 10 minutes ago we had a successful launch of a Falcon 9 on its 14th mission, carrying 2 satellites, the Intelsat G33 and 34. On the top of your screen is a countdown until deployment of these 2 satellites, and we do have a burn, as they said, coming up here in about 16 minutes, and we're going to be staying live and answering your guys' questions. So if you guys have a question, you can send those to us in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. There's a live view of those satellites on the top of the second stage. Send them in the chat, take us at the launch pad, and we will work on answering those questions here this evening as we continue through the coast phase. While we wait for those to come in, if it's your first time here, though, make sure you engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, space briefing, space news update, or exclusive one-on-one interview. We cover every single launch, not only of SpaceX, but all the other aerospace companies as well. With a little asterisk there, China's near impossible to cover, and Russia doesn't cover most of theirs with cameras either. But everyone else we bring to you live here on the launch pad. We're working on having our launch teams down on site to bring you even better coverage, and we can only do that thanks to your guys' support. Also, it is launch day, so make sure you use promo code LAUNCHDAY on our shop to get 10% off of everything. We got our Falcon 9 cargo launch sequence shirt, which one of my favorites. That's the one that takes you through the launch sequence of what a viewer goes through. So sweaty palms retract, anxiety builds, and things like that. So definitely take a moment and check that out. We are listening in through Mission Comms to get updates throughout today's stream while we continue towards this actual payload deployment in just over 21 minutes time from now. Saw a question coming in. Which drone ship was this? This was a shortfall of Gravitas, and it was stationed 634 kilometers down range. Kimber says, shook your entire house? Oh, that's got to be a feeling. Probably, I hope it doesn't get old. Launches are always really exciting. Cygnus is asking, what do they recover the drone ship with? So right now they would use the support ship that's out there to also recover the fairings. That support ship will hook up to the drone ship and bring it back. Support ship on this mission is Bob. But a shortfall of Gravitas is actually a automated drone ship. So SpaceX could actually have that drone ship navigate itself with its own engines back to the port, and then they would just use tugs within the port. But generally at this time they're still doing it with Bob itself and them coming back together. But that is an option in the future. But that's a great question there. Keep sending in those questions. SpaceX SR2 is asking, how long does it take for SpaceX to build a new second stage? Ooh, that's a good question. And we don't have a really exact details on that, as we don't see them like finish getting built anywhere and, you know, loading on a truck. You know, Starship's pretty obvious. Even the first stages, we see them move around quite a bit. But the second stages, we don't have a huge amount of info on those. But you're talking a couple, you're talking not a year. You're talking months. So that's a great question there. Dragon King, are the rocket engine nozzles on the second stage narrower than the first stage? No. So the second stage nozzle is actually almost as big as all 9 of the nozzles on the bottom. It has to be just small enough to fit in the size of it, but no, it is not. It's much, much larger because it's built for the vacuum of space. It needs to be more optimized, and it needs a bigger bell for that. The first stage has 9 engines. The second stage only has 1. Great question there. Project Soundwave's asking, what is this satellite for? That's a great question. On board, these are 2 replacement satellites for Intelsat's aging constellation. These satellites will be going to 133 degrees and 129 degrees in a geostationary slot to help with service of television broadcasting over North America. The satellites themselves are part of 6 new ones, 4 of which are being built by Maxar Technologies and 2 of which by Northrop Grumman. These satellites will become operational on December 5th of 2023. if all 6 go up in time, and they are part of the Intelsat constellation, and they should last for about 15 years. They are powered by deployable solar arrays, so they'll have that as well, but they are for communications and television broadcasting. Great question there. David asking, do you think Thursday's rover discovery of the bacteria deposits will encourage NASA to focus more on Mars? I think NASA's focusing on Mars quite a bit for research. We do have other rovers and helicopters in development. Biggest thing is they're very expensive programs to do, and they take time to plan and build. That's why we kind of seem to see a rover go every about every 6 years. So I'd say we'll see at least one more mission there by the end of the year for sure. Maybe 2, we'll see. But of course, we also have hopefully some Starship missions and others coming up in the near future, which will help open up that cadence to do more research there as well. Right now, SpaceX does not have a rocket that can get there. Future versions of SLS would be able to, but they don't have, they have a lot more stuff that they need to do to be able to do so. They would have to use the Atlas V's and rockets like that that they know work at this time to launch their payloads. So we're kind of in a transition phase of, yes, more Mars, but we're also in a transition phase of rockets that are available. There are no more Atlas V's available to be ordered. Those orders closed over a year ago, and you're talking those launches ending by 2026 or so. So even if you had a new idea today and you wanted to do it, you're talking 4, 6, 8 years until it actually happens. That's just how long these programs take. This rocket is, the rocket is actually back down on Earth. The first stage has already landed in the Atlantic Ocean, 630 some kilometers from where it launched. The second stage will, once it deploys the payload in just over 16 minutes, will do a deorbit burn and bring itself back, and it will crash into the ocean just off of Australia, where it will sit on the bottom of the ocean. What SpaceX SR2, what security do Falcon 9 rideshare sats have to go through? Let me know more in the chat what you're meaning there, SpaceX. I want to be able to answer that for you correctly. If you're just joining us, though, welcome. We are now 17 minutes, 17 seconds since another successful launch of a Falcon 9 on its 14th flight successfully, and had a successful landing. We are now halfway through today's mission, coming up on payload deployment. But first, we do have one more burn of that second stage, and that's going to occur at T plus 26 minutes, 19 seconds. So we're just waiting for that to occur at this time. SpaceX, like DoD rideshare missions, need to be checked before launch to make sure that owners have not put lasers or something. Oh, okay. Yeah, they would all go through, of course, checkouts. There are rules and policies of what SpaceX is allowed to fly by their own rules. And, of course, there are also government rules and space treaty rules. So there, of course, would be checkouts, but it's not something like you just show up and board. It is a long process for integration. You're talking, at least weeks, if not a couple months. So definitely something that, you're not sneaking anything on board with these, because they need to know every ounce of what's on board, because that is what calculates the fuel, the trajectory, and everything there. Dragon King, how much of NASA's funding goes to projects for colonization of the moon? I would say right now, technically none. Right now, we're just trying to get back there. We're trying to get back there frequently, and then we will start working on projects for colonization. We want a base on the moon by the end of the decade, the first start of a base. So we will see that. But actual colonization, you're talking end of the century type of stuff. You're talking 2040s, 50s, 60s, 70s for the government especially. 60s, 70s, 80s. So yeah, right now there is not budget for colonizing the moon. Building a base on the moon, that would be different, and they are working on the preparations for that. Fruit Loops is asking, any idea when the next crew from the ISS will return to Earth? We have Crew 4 coming home next week, so we'll get through this weekend. On Tuesday, I believe it is, we have a chance to talk to Station, to the Crew 4 crew before they depart, and then I believe it's next Thursday they are coming home. So make sure you join us for that. We'll, of course, have our live tracker and undocking and then splashdown coverage of that. So make sure you follow along for that as well. And yes, Falcon Heavy is still scheduled this month. Hopefully, the return of Falcon Heavy on October 28th. Now, that date can slide a little bit if it needs to. But the fact that the pad is being retrofitted for Falcon Heavy is being prepared. This is something that is happening in weeks. We're not talking months anymore. So that is very exciting to see. Cygnus is asking how many rockets has SpaceX launched recently. Well, they have launched a total of 46 so far this year. And if you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat. Tag us at the launch pad. We're working on answering those live as we await payload deployment. But first, that second stage burn expected here. Expecting that burn to start up at 26 minutes, 19 seconds into flight. So about just over 5 minutes from now. And we should have commentary back there. You can see on that bottom of your screen that kind of dome circling towards that burn and then deployment. The deployments are going to be about 5 minutes apart. So right now we are counting down to that first deployment, and then we will count down to the second deployment. Road Torque, wow, that was the most spectacular launch I have ever seen. Yeah, they had some absolutely incredible views today. They lucked out with the time for the jellyfish, so absolutely a beautiful launch. Rosim's asking, can the second stage ever be made reusable? So that is something SpaceX looked at. It is a harder task than just slowing down and re-entering, because you need to have enough fuel to try to be able to land it, or you need another landing sequence. You need to be able to slow down for re-entry and actually be able to re-enter in a place that you're at a recoverable position. With right now, the second stage, they deorbit burn it so it comes in a specific place, but they don't have to worry about it being usable again. So it's a lot easier to do. So there's a lot of sequence to it. I mean, maybe one day we'll see that, but right now it's just not worth it. So having a 90% reusable rocket, the fairings in the first stage, works for SpaceX. And then once we see Starship, it'll be fully reusable. Dragon King, how many launches were SpaceX expecting this year? They officially had said 52, I believe, at the beginning of the year. And then Elon said low 60s. So I'd say we're on track for it. We got quite a few coming up. We really do. Yes, this satellite will be orbiting the Earth. Doc Bones, thank you so much for that super chat. Really appreciate that. That really helps us out. And sounds like a plan. That sounds like a good plan. We're working on some Artemis plans tonight. And working on some of our big announcement that's coming out in a couple weeks tonight. So that will be a nice treat to have while we continue working into the evening. SpaceX, silly question. Can SpaceX land the CM after an ISS docking? What do you... the Dragon? What are you talking about there, CM? Sorry, don't get that. Rossum, how many crew and cargo dragons does SpaceX have? They have 4 crew dragons, and currently they have 2 cargo dragons, but they are working on at least 1 or not 2 more.
Acquisition of signal, goodbye.
And there we go, acquisition of signal. So you can see that speed and altitude telemetry being updated. Coming up now, just 2 minutes away from that second stage burn. Continuing towards that deployment in now under 9 minutes. The service modules. No, they cannot. The trunks are something they do scrap and that burn up in the atmosphere. They're not something that they are able to recover. It would be you would have to have a heat shield on the bottom, which kind of removes the fact of you being able to access inside the trunk. So yeah, they just scrap those. They're not a huge thing, so don't make a lot of junk and aren't that expensive retrospectively. So they just make new ones, and because they don't use those on 99% of their missions, they only use them on their crew missions and cargo. Not a huge deal either. There you can see engine chill now beginning on the second stage, preparing to reignite here in just over a minute's time for a burn that's going to last about 45 seconds. So we're seeing that engine chill beginning. This is the only burn of the second burn, but the only burn following the initial circularization burn. This one is going to help just adjust the telemetry and trajectory of the second stage prior to payload deployment.
Galaxy 33 and 34 satellites for our customer Intelsat. Now, if you're just joining us, we've had a nominal mission so far. Falcon 9 launched on time at 7:05 p.m. Eastern from Space Launch Complex 40 in Florida. We successfully recovered the first stage on our drone ship, marking its 14th landing. And while that was happening, the second stage completed its first burn, taking the Intelsat Galaxy 33 and 34 payloads into an initial parking orbit. Now we're about 15 seconds away from a second ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine, which will carry the second stage and those Intelsat Galaxy 33 and 34 satellites into the orbit needed for payload deploy. And over the coast phase,
MVAC startup.
There's the call out there for MVAC startup. This burn will last about 45 seconds. And just before this, we had been chilling in the Merlin vacuum turbo pumps with liquid oxygen in preparation for the full flow. So this burn dramatically increasing the speed of the second stage, helping us to raise the apogee, or the highest point of the orbit, for payload deploy.
Nominal deploy orbit.
So with that call out there, we know a couple of things. Merlin vacuum shutdown occurred, and the call out there from operators showing that we are in the payload deploy orbit. Now, the Intelsat Galaxy 33 and 34 satellites are still attached to Falcon 9's second stage at the top of the vehicle. Their deployments will begin in about 5 minutes. First will be the Galaxy 33 satellite, followed by Galaxy 34 about 5 minutes after that. So while we wait, we're going to go back to a coast phase. Please sit back, enjoy the views and our space jams.
And there we go, a successful second burn, and now we count down to that deployment now, just less than 5 minutes away from the first deployment, and that will be followed 5 minutes later by the second deployment. We're going to do a last call for questions. If you have those, you can send those to us in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll be answering those through this final coast phase as we await for deployment. Giving you an idea of launches that you can look forward to coming up. There's quite a few on the schedule. Of course, we already talked about that Falcon Heavy. We do have a couple Soyuz launches coming up next week on the 10th and the 12th. We possibly see the return of OneWeb launching on an Indian rocket on the 21st. We also have another Soyuz on the 21st. We have another Soyuz on the 26th. So a month of possibly 4 Soyuz launches. We then have Falcon Heavy to end the month with a Launcher 1 as well, and possibly the maiden flight of RS-1 from ABL Space. So lots of things we are keeping an eye on, and of course we will be bringing those to you live right here on the Launchpad. We also have the return of Crew 4 from the International Space Station. followed along with our big update that we're going to be sharing with you guys in the next couple of weeks, something we've been working on for 6 months and super excited to finally get to share with all of you. So make sure you stay tuned for that. It's going to really make space accessible for everyone. So we're excited to share that with you in the near future. Dragon King, can you give us a teaser? What's coming out in 2 weeks? What can I say? I mean, I can say anything. I own TLP. There's no one stopping me from saying anything. But what do we want to say at this point? Let's say if you're a real space fan, this could affect your daily life. Let's go with that. If you're a real space fan, this could affect your daily life. Yeah, I think that's a good teaser.
Acquisition signal HPK.
Irvin asking, is there another Chinese launch we have to worry about the booster? Not this month. We are keeping an eye on that, as we should have one more of those this year, I believe. But at this time, not yet. Red Blood asking, is this man? Nope, this is a cargo mission of 2 satellites. Yeah, daily life. Let's see some guesses in the comments there. What do you think we're really announcing in 2 weeks? It's a big announcement. 6 months of work. 2 years of dreaming. Zach getting 0 sleep. That's accurate, Ted. Absolutely. That's so awesome. I'm going to say your name wrong, and I apologize. Toys? Toys? That's awesome. Zach will be on Cruise 6. Woo, that'd be a dramatic change there. Nope, never enough satellites. Some people thinking we're releasing an app. Stellar TLP coming in harder than Santa this year. I mean, I wonder if what we're releasing might be something Santa brings to people. That's a possibility. If you're just joining us, though, welcome here to the launch pad. We're now just about a minute away from deployment of today's satellites. Let's them back into mission control.
Eastern time, followed by successful ascent, stage separation, a first stage landing, and 2 second stage engine burns. Now, this mission has launched the first 2 of 7 satellites that will replace and refresh a large part of the Intelsat North America Galaxy fleet. For Intelsat, this is a huge milestone for a project that started more than 3 years ago. Intelsat has 7 C-band satellites that are contracted to replace the existing North America media satellites. 6 of those 7 satellites are slated to be launched before the end of this year. Now, we're coming up just a few seconds away from payload deployment of the first of those 2 satellites on board today's mission, the Galaxy 33 satellite.
Galaxy 33 deploy confirmed.
And you can see it just behind the Galaxy 34 satellite, gently floating off to perform the rest of its mission. Now, Galaxy 34 is still attached to Falcon 9's second stage. Its deployment will take place in about 5 minutes from now. So we're going to take another short coast phase, and we'll see you back in a few for Galaxy 34 deploy.
And some incredible views there of Galaxy 33 starting to float away from that second stage. And you can see there that countdown reset to the second payload deployment. We'll be answering last few questions. I see some people continuing to guess what our big announcement will be in 2 weeks. Apparently, I might be heading to the space station. It's a physical product. James is saying a TLP telescope, maybe. Interesting. That's an interesting guess. A SpaceX video game. That's another interesting guess. There's some exciting things. If you're a TLP member and you hang out in the Discord, you might have even gotten to see some early views of this. That's one of the perks of being a TLP member. At different levels, you get different levels of behind-the-scenes access. So yeah, members, keep an eye out because you will be the first to know. You guys aren't finding out in 2 weeks. You are finding out sooner than that. So we're excited to share what's coming very soon with all of you. Is it a physical product? Is it an app? We know. You will soon find out. But if you're just joining us, we are now just 3.5 minutes away from the final payload deployment of today's mission, Intelsat Galaxy 33 and Galaxy 34. 33 has now left the screen and is on its journey to its final place. 34 is now just a few minutes away from deployment. William, free Starlink phones for all. Oh, that'd be nice. Can Canadians get in on that too? That'd be nice. Rosam's thinking an Elon Musk a bobblehead doll. Interesting. Lots of people thinking an app. It's an interesting idea. Keep the guesses going. We'd love to hear from you guys. What do you guys think we are announcing, releasing, sharing, showing in 2 weeks' time? We'd love to hear from you guys. Buckets is asking, what does the 33 stand for? That's just the name of the satellite. So there are 32 other ones that have existed or currently exist. So they're just 33 and 34. That's all that stands for. But that's a nice, simple question, but it's a very important question. Ted S., a Zach bobblehead. Ooh. How many people would want a TLP crew bobblehead collection? Could do one of me, Kieran, maybe some of our rocket chasers. Would you people want a TLP bobblehead collection? 24-hour TLP channel. I'm not even going to wait 2 weeks to say that. Yes, soon. We're working on it. We have run some 24 hours, obviously, with James Webb and Artemis, but 24/7 cameras are coming. They're in the works.
Acquisition signal, Diego Garcia.
We're about 90 seconds away from payload deployment here. Should listen in mission control here shortly. Few people are wanting the bobblehead collection, so we're gonna have to maybe work on that. Casso, when will Artemis 1 launch? We are expecting that rollout to be the first week of November, as the launch opens the second week. We will be doing an Artemis update, Ask Us Anything live stream, hopefully in the next couple weeks once we have some more details from NASA directly. We've got some questions into them, and once we do that, Kieran and I are going to sit down and do another Ask Us Anything live stream. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Should be coming up to deployment here in just about 30 seconds from now.
And our mission for today for our customer Intelsat. Now, about 5 minutes ago, we deployed the Galaxy 33 satellite, and now we're awaiting deployment of the second and final payload on today's mission. That's Galaxy 34 that you can see on your screen. Payload deployment coming up about the next 10 or 15 seconds.
Galaxy 34, deploy confirmed. Galaxy 34, deploy confirmed.
And Galaxy 34 going off to join the constellation and its partner satellite, Galaxy 33. All of us here at SpaceX want to give a big thank you to our customer Intelsat for entrusting us with today's mission. We also want to give a shout out to the Range and the Federal Aviation Administration for supporting today's mission. It's been a really exciting few days here at SpaceX. Tonight's launch concludes our 184th overall mission to date, our 46th launch this year, and our third launch just this week, including the launch of the Crew 5 astronauts to the International Space Stations. So, thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in and for your continued support. We hope you have a wonderful night and weekend.
And with that, mission complete now, just 39 minutes after launch, 2 more satellites officially in orbit. Well, that's going to do it for us here today. Here at the launch pad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. And if you haven't yet taken a moment and engaged that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, do so now. And we invite you to follow us over on Twitter, TLPN_official, so you never miss space news as it happens. Follow us over on our Discord. We're going to be hanging out in live comms, kind of like a post show. We can answer some more questions there, so consider joining us on the Discord. And of course, head on over to the shop, use promo code LaunchDay to save 10% off of everything in the TLP store. Global shipping is available. We do distribute from different places, so you're not going to take months to ship to get to Europe and things. So definitely take a moment and check that out. But that's going to do it for our live launch coverage of Intelsat G33, G34 from TLP Network Studios. This is Zach signing off. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.